Gale Force eSports. And it was purely through the incredible planning that Gale Force eSports had, they were able to surprise. Caterpillar, after they defeated Team Naventic, said that he felt like they had a handle on the cheese, any cheese that Gale Force eSports could bring to a series like last time, but if they don't, they'll be relying on their adaptation mid-game, which hasn't always been there for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, that has definitely been one of the biggest weaknesses of our #1 team here in North America, but they are going to be taking us to Cursed Hollow for game number 1. The bans being on Sky Temple and Infernal Shrines.
Infernal Shrines, this is the second time that Tempo Storm has banned that battleground. Gale Force eSports, what do you think of the Sky Temple ban?
The Sky Temple ban does seem, you know, it's a bit off. It just doesn't, I don't know. Gale Force is better on bigger maps, it feels like a lot of the time. So I guess if I thought them to make any major target ban, it would either be to something where Tempo Storm is overly dominant. Granted, their maps kind of clash a little bit, so that's hard. So that's hard to go for that direction. So maybe that's why. Out of the not clashing top maps, they think that Sky Temple is the one where they don't feel like they can take it to Tempo.
It's funny that you mentioned that because it's not just battlegrounds that we're starting to see this collision of them.
They're meta.
These two teams scrim each other consistently, and their metas have started to overlap. We're seeing a lot more Greymane play on Friday from Gale Force eSports, and that was something played a lot in Part 2 from Tempo, but Tempo's also been playing some Zagara.
And another weird thing to look at when considering the intermeta that we may experience in the series is the fact that Tempo Storm and Gale Force eSports were one of the first teams we got to see them play very early on at the beginning after the part, right? Is the fact that we got to see Tempo and Gale Force come out and they scrimmed against one another and they had one of the most identical approaches to the game at that point in time.
Right.
It was identical almost.
Right, and how they both played Teammate.
And Teammate was left out and Teammate was like, hey, you know, I want to be a part of this. But then suddenly here at this moment in time, Gale Force is the only one who's shown anything onto this meta, onto 2.0, and they've put heavy emphasis, as you said, into the Greymane. It just shows that Tempo Storm and Gale Force have identical thought process in almost everything that they do, and I feel like whenever they have to go head-to-head, we're going to see that kind of crumble.
Yeah, especially as the series progresses. Who can make the right adaptations? Who's bringing in more that the other team doesn't know about, maybe that they've been able to scrim through before. But last time, too, Tempo Storm just were not able to adapt, and this time now is on 2.0, and Gale Force eSports has had some methods of trying things out on 2.0 in a competition, whereas Tempo hasn't yet. And it's hard to gauge who is going to be more hurt by that. Same with Freedom versus No Tomorrow. You know, Freedom had it, but they also had to show some things. Same with Gale Force eSports, although Michael assured us that he didn't have to show too much.
Yeah, not showing everything here. They've got some tools still to be using here, and there's going to be two of them. The Zagara Abathur full macro play here for Gale Force eSports and banking on that Zagara before the secondary ban phase again. They are all in on the bug.
They played this super similar. I don't know if it was also on Cursed with Zagara. No, it was on Towers of Doom where they had Zagara and Abathur and Greymane. So Tempo Storm banning Tyrael away, and Uther has already been banned away from this too. I loved that Uther ban, knowing that probably Gale Force eSports was going to first pick Greymane, so trying to take all the tools away of making him invulnerable.
And what that also does is kind of make the Malfurion that much more appealing onto Tempo Storm, mainly just because Uther is that weird skill matchup of being able to negate a lot of the things that happen with Twilight Dream in his AoE CC. Thanks to the new level 7 on reworked Uther, it's not as big of a deal as it was in the past. Sergeant Hammer is going to be banned out for by Gale Force. Not going to let Tempo Storm pick that up for themselves.
That's kind of an odd ban to see versus Tempo.
Tempo does have a very patient draft so far, and also into his Zagara and Abathur, very macro focus. Sergeant Hammer is one of the few heroes other than like Sylve that can kind of just be like, oh no, we're going to force you to bring the fight into this area and pull away the control that Gale Force is drafted into. And so I think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, more of a scrim result because we don't see too much Sergeant Hammer in North America, but it is one that I don't totally disagree with here from GFE. But the Johanna Ariel rotation out of Tempo Storm, that one is very interesting.
Triple Warrior with Ariel, and we haven't gotten who will be the carry here.
Yeah. I mean, first thought is going to be a battery, right? It could be Vala. It could be
Gul'dan, Lunara.
Yeah, it could be any one of those three. And what does Gale Force want to do? When I think about that, Gul'dan, considering the map, not necessarily great when it comes to a 4-man. You know, that's where we normally see him, but it's not bad. I'm trying to think about what stands out here for Gale Force. What do they want to be picking up? Obviously, they need their warrior.
Murden is still up. Great pairing with Abathur, and a favorite of Gale Force eSports, but so is Brightwing!
I was going to say, it just, it's going to be Cassia. Ariel's got some blinds to set it up. Johanna's got the blinds to set it up. We have the full blind dream for Tempo Storm.
The only thing we're missing is Lily.
Yeah, you know,
that's okay.
Dignitas decided to venture in that path. It didn't work out too hot. Brightwing hanging out and chilling as she was picked up here for Akaface, as you said, one of the favorites for him as a player. In the past, he was just known as a Brightwing god, but the fact that this draft here, very different play styles coming out of these drafts. Tempo Storm, way more teamfight oriented with the triple warrior, obviously picking up the Cassia. Less emphasis into macro, but they do have the Dahaka for its global, but they're against 3 globals on the other side.
Yeah, that is so much global pressure, especially with Abathur already. Zagara has options for if she wants to pick Ma or Nidus Network. She's not locked into getting Nidus.
I personally think Gale Force has a huge advantage in this game. Now thinking about it, I didn't consider the map at first because it's a map where macro play can be accented, teamfighting can be too, but both people have to invest into that teamfighting, right? I don't think that Dahaka is enough to be able to match Zag on her own, and definitely not Zag and Abathur.
Right.
Like, Zag alone can smash that 1v1 and can just push into him, make him very, very useless, and it's a lot of the times we've seen Gale Force use that. And if they focus on using their macro play and honestly just ignoring even tributes, they could snowball this game very much into their favor.
The only thing I'm wondering about is how bosses might go for them.
Yeah.
If Tempo Storm can control the bosses from early enough on, but if they get behind an experience because of the globals for Gale Force eSports, they might not even get the chance. This is it. Game 1 between Tempo Storm and Gale Force eSports. You guys have been excited about it. We're excited about it. And finally, we get it.
We do, and here in the blue with Triple Warrior is Tempo Storm. June will be on the Ariel. Fury will be playing the Johanna. Koth and Luck flexing, gonna play the Zarya. Psalm is on Cassia, and last year we have Dahaka, played by Caterpillar.
Psalm entrusted with the Cassia play. Over in the Gale Force eSports area of the battleground, Akaface will be playing Brightwing, Equinox playing Murden, playing Greymane will be Michael Udall, playing Zagara will be Crone, and that leaves Fan once again to play Abathur.
So what I was talking about in the draft about why I think GFE can pull ahead is purely based on the fact that, again, this is one of those maps you can get away with that global, with the pressure, the macro game. Whereas on other maps, the Triple Warrior where you have to take the fight like Sky, we talk about, can be one of those maps. Whenever you play on those, this skirmish-oriented composition really can thrive. But Gale Force, as long as they don't commit to team fights too heavily the way that Tempo Storm is really going to want them to, they are going to be comfortable here in this game. They just need to make sure they get that split pressure and they manipulate those minion waves and mercenaries.
Yeah, it's how they can safely delay and stall out, slow down tributes being picked up by Tempo Storm while getting an incredible, massive advantage with experience with all of their global composition.
What? Good detainment strike coming out from June. Stormbolt lands, but it's not enough here as the minions aren't even moving outward. I was going to take a minute to kind of appreciate the fact that Tempo Storm has managed to even win this laning phase so far. I very much thought that Gale Force would have the composition to be able to get away with it. They do have an Abathur, so their laning phase is going to be weaker-ish, but every other part of their comp has insane laning. This rotation down to mid, though, really makes up for what they, haven't seen in the first minute coming up from GFE and that lane pressure Tempo had on top.
Well, I think that goes to show how well Tempo handled this, putting Dahaka versus Abathur, getting him there, having Johanna to be able to stall out waves, and then you know that when you have a Zarya composition, you can push hard in structure. So they pushed Zagara back. She couldn't get as much use out of her Infest early on. And that did make Gale Force have to make the rotations to get any structural damage done. Tempo Storm has now gotten the towers in top, so they're moving on to the mid. Just trying to make sure that they can try to get ahead as much as they can in experience and try to get the lanes pushed.
They go in with that polymorph. Can they get the pick onto Fury?
Oh,
as
yeah.
the Dwarf Toss is there, and that is first blood over to GFE. Again, using those globals, abusing the rotations, taking their composition, and now pulling a small lead.
And when that type of situation happens, it's up to Tempo to try to make sure that they get what they can out of those kinds of picks, because they are going to happen. You have Brightwing, you have Zagara later on too, but Brightwing's the big one to come in for picks, and then an Abathur hat. So as long as it's Johanna like that, if she could just buy as much time as she can, then wherever the rest of Tempo Storm are pushing, if they can get more structural damage done, they can stay in this.
And now we are 13 seconds away from the tribute, and more importantly, the moment where we get to see how can Gale Force execute with their global composition. I mean, obviously they don't have all the globals online, but they do have the Abathur and the Brightwing. So can they split out? Can they delay long, get that experience in those side lanes, and pull ahead here when it comes to experience?
Geez, there are toxic nests littering the battlefield. Fan setting up so much vision opportunities and some damage. June has started the channel, Equinox being zoned away along with the Abathur hat. Tribute picked up, not too much time wasted, and Dahaka got to stay top versus Zagara. That was key.
That was huge here for Tempo Storm. Yeah, as you said, again, the fact that Dahaka didn't have to go anywhere, only one delay happened on the side of Gale Force eSports. They got only a small amount of experience to be able to pull ahead over Tempo Storm here. And Tempo, with this 3-man rotation after the tribute onto this bottom front wall, is going to be able to make up for that. So things are going well here for Tempo Storm, but not everything online yet here for GFE.
Our Cassia build is standard with what we have seen before. Charge strikes at level 1, Ring of the Leech because there are more blinds to heal off of. We've seen Impale before at level 7, also Surge of Light, so we'll see what we're going to get here. The Impale was taken along with Lili. This is a crazy early boss. Does Tempo get their own?
Okay, so no. Tempo is going to start it, and I guess they have figured it out soon enough with so many members gone. It depends how quickly they ended up starting it. Yeah, so they're fine. They get the trade, they lose the tribute. That is totally fine for them. And with Equinox scouting it out, if they had started it a bit later, he would have questioned if they wanted to make that rotation, but Gale Force picks up their boss. They're going to be able to pressure here, as we see up on top. And smart play from Tempo Storm, realizing so many members were gone for so long that they needed to get this boss trade, because a lesser team, we would not see a mirrored boss on bottom.
Yeah, and there was no way to get, well, they are still rotating up to defend, but there was no way that Tempo Storm were going to get to the top in time to save the fort. So now Zarya is trying to help along the boss in blue, try to get the same amount, all about checks trades out in resources. But Akafe is coming in, Polymorph to slow down. Equinox is here too with the Abathur hat. Arcane Flare hits, but Cawthon stays strong, getting back behind the base.
He does stay strong, and we're at a dead even game here. Gilly, as the bottom forts are falling, structurally it is just mirrored. Experience the exact same. The only difference is going to be the one kill Galeforce has managed to pick up. Tempo Storm is going to pick up their Giants, hoping that Dahaka can get that pressure out on top. Along with the tribute spawning bottom, that is about the dream for them. Dahaka will be able to get that experience, try and close that race to 10, and Galeforce here, a lot of their focus is just going to be on stalling out. Again, it's about that side Soka. It's about the macro game.
Same as Dahaka, he'll be escorting Giants in the top lane. But Zagara has been put into the bottom lane now to see if she can push that along. Nobody has even showed up to stall. I guess feeling that Tempo Storm was too close to heroic abilities potentially, or just couldn't get into the position. It is a difficult one to stall because of its location.
Yeah, one of the things that Galeforce is doing right now is their thought process is that they do want to delay, right? Optimally, when you have that, you're like, yeah, I want to try and, make Abathur get maximum value, but a lot of that is they just view it as going out and risking one person's life is not worth it. They're even in this game, and a lot of the times at the top level of Heroes of the Storm on an Abathur comp, that's all you can ask for at this stage. It's just not being too far behind. So they aren't even willing to take that and venture out, maximize any more out of that Abathur. They take it, give up the tribute, and Tempo Storm uses that time to move over here with 10, take out the mid fort.
Looking at Zarya's talent build, she is trying to help out with more damage. She does have the explosive barrier, which she's going to use right here in the fight. Som blinding and knocking Michael Udall away. Heroic abilities now online for both teams. Equinox being chased back. She also picked up Feel the Heat at level 1, so trying to make sure that Zarya can give more damage, because it is a damage light team. It is triple warrior. She even got speed barrier, and that was boosted, so watch for when she gives the ally shield. It's now 50% movement speed, and you fly.
Yeah, and that's really going to benefit Cassia.
It will.
That's going to help her so very much, and the just insane melee composition that we see out of Tempo Storm. They're going to need that mobility to translate that over to damage or some form of defensive capabilities here. Either way, the Giants are pressuring on bottom right now, as Crowan's doing his thing on the Zag, getting that split pressure. Good delay here for GFE so far. Now they're willing to, now that they've hit 10, they try and make that pressure. Blessed Shield goes on to Crowan. Another follow-up stun. Polymorph is not enough heal. Crowan goes down, and June ages himself to keep himself up.
There were so many blinds in that fight for Tempo Storm that Gale Force eSports could not do anything despite collapsing on Som. So Tempo Storm will get a tribute and a curse.
What can they make happen here with the 3 tributes? That is going to be the question. Giants are something they may consider getting rid of because, oh, never mind, the front wall got rid of them. That is perfect. Giants negate the curse up in one lane, so now knowing the bottom will be able to pressure out, they can set their focus here to mid.
Deep towers are a hope, as well as making sure that Gale Force stays here. Drag hits. It is on Murden. It's Equinox, Tanky, Akaface. Blink heals in just to make sure he has the heal that is needed. Gale Force eSports still has the possibility of a team fight, but waiting on Clone. They would love to be able to make sure that Tempo Storm doesn't get too far ahead of them in experience.
Clone's online. They're down go for the throw for another 20 seconds. Aegis has just come online for June, so we'll see if they try and force the initiation. As Tempo Storm looks like they want to test this keep with 15 seconds left on the curse. Top 4 about to fall. Tempo Storm even has the 13 talents here now. Looks like they're fine with what they've managed to achieve so far. Or even set out a party shrub here after these Giants come up.
Cattle is just baiting the back. Nope, he's going to go all the way back and then brush stock to wherever he is needed. If it shows up that he's needed in the bottom, he can brush stock in there if the team finds that engagement, but otherwise starting to head to the top lane, which is coincidentally where Crowan is too, trying to push back out and catch up on the experience that was in that lane post-curse.
Gale Force just looking to paint the map their color. The kills are even in this game, but the game obviously now after that last curse is not very even. A lot of that comes down just to the timing of the death. That Tempo Storm was able to get the pick around the curse itself, keep that pressure out, and that was what we were talking about. Gale Force has an extremely fragile composition. They don't want to go, full 5-on-5 very often, and when they do, they want it to be, here's a clone, here's a kill, okay, now kite. And they haven't been able to do that so far, leading to Tempo Storm here, not only with a level lead, but having a pretty significant structural advantage as well.
It was crucial for Tempo Storm that they were able to get that early game lead too, because being able to get the first curse has taken out all of the forts, and now that allows them to easier push back all of these globals of Gale Force eSports. It takes the globals of Gale Force longer too to be able to start even doing a lot of damage.
That's actually a really good point you bring up, largely because not only does Gale Force have globals, they have a very specific type. Both of their globals want to be in an area where the minions cannot see them or where they're out of the fog of war, right? And getting rid of those forts, make it to where their area in which they can actually become effective is essentially cut in half. Just because Zagara is relying on her creep, and that can be cleared again through the side of the minions. And then we know Abathur generally, unless he's very confident he knows where all 5 people are, he likes staying in his home. He's nice wrapped up in those pajamas.
He's a homebody, but that's all right. This is isolation,
Drag.
Not letting her get back in time. Brightwing will be here with the phase shield. Blessed shield comes out. Crowan in trouble. Akafe separated. And another kill for Tempo.
Tempo Storm still showing they've got it in there, forcing the advantage even when they do not have an objective up, trying to catch people out.
I love seeing the isolation from Dahaka, that he's able to stop somebody from being able to use their mobility to get away from a pick.
Yeah, it's really cool to be able to see that play out. We do have a tribute up, but a member down for Gale Force eSports, in the fact that they still have Greymane just backing. It's unlikely they're going to be able to venture outward and pick up this tribute. The best part about this game for Gale Force eSports is that there's no major win condition up for in the near future, in the foreseeable future of Tempo Storm. And they're even in experience, or they're close enough. That Abathur has done work this game. Equinox goes in, Dwarf Toss was Detainment Strike, Stormbolt misses. Line goes out, hits a couple of members, but they cut it out once more. Gale Force questioning if they want to commit to this team fight. There goes the Condemn, the drag onto Equinox, Blessed Shield follow-up, and that is Equinox down. Clone followed up, and Tempo Storm showing that they have the tools here with their blind composition.
As Cattle showed up, he also threw out isolation on Crowan, so he had to back off. That was just a few seconds of enough time where he wasn't doing damage. The Tempo didn't have to worry as much about the Zagara damage too, and that enabled them to make sure they stayed healthy along with getting that one pick and taking out the clone. Now getting the first keep of the game, our Tempo Storm. And they said it. They felt like they had all the answers to whatever Gale Force eSports has been playing. At least in game number 1, it does feel that way.
It does feel that way for now. I'm not totally sold until we at least see the next curse play out. That is going to be way more impactful than that of the last. And the fact that only one keep is down, Gale Force's comp can kind of deal with that, right? They are okay with this style of play, whereas Tempo Storm very much is not. So it is good that Tempo Storm has, again, been able to achieve that early lead and do the things they've been able to do here in this game, especially with so little of kills. But it's not over yet here for GFE. They very much have a composition that doesn't hate being where they are now.
There are people off the battleground for Gale Force eSports, and now they've been spotted trying to gank Caterpillar in the top lane. He's already used Burrow, Polymorph. No way getting out of this situation, and especially having isolation. Not having adaptation does mean that you're down one of those 3 health bars that you also get, along with your essence. So Gale Force abusing that fact to finally get a kill and start to put some damage in these lanes.
Dahaka, so good that even when he takes a different heroic, he's still got double your health bars.
Yep.
That's about how it works. But Gale Force with this pick, they've got the Abathur getting that side soak. Zagara is trying to set up the map, prep more when it comes to the creep laying out, because again, you cannot set down your Nidus without that creep established there beforehand. And this is when Gale Force, they need to be efficient, effective from this point on in this game. This is right where their turning point needs to be, and it's on this tribute.
Dahaka is back, tribute started. This would be a curse for Tempo Storm. Can try to take out more of it.
Man, they're gonna play it out. They're going to give up another tribute.
And Dahaka is, again, was not forced to come up to the tribute, so he's able to once again force back Zagara, even chasing her down in a way. Worgen killer, alpha killer from our Worgen player will help out in the damage versus the triple warrior composition.
All right, so before the crazy fight happens here on this bottom keep, never mind, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Either way, the fact that Gale Force gave up the boss the curse, excuse me, the reason I'm concerned is the boss timers. We'll see if it comes to light later, but for now, Tempo Storm wants this bottom keep. They're going to focus it. Stormbolt lands only onto Zarya. Nothing to be gained there as a good blinds drop by Fury.
That will be a keep for free. Gale Force eSports not willing to try to engage again versus Tempo Storm's triple warrior Cassia composition that did not pick Martial Law. I was wondering if Martial Law would still be the pick that is a combo with charged strikes at 1, but in this case, getting the pierce. So having Lightning Fury be able to pierce through some enemies.
And this is what I was talking about. Giving up that curse, the curse itself was not game. As long as the bosses didn't spawn until way after the curse itself. Now, Gale Force, by giving up that tribute, is in a lose-lose, potentially game-ending boss here. We see the flank, the drag, the detainment strike. Equinox forced to pop his avatar as the boss still stands. It throws out the stun, zoning members of Gale Force eSports. The boss falls low. Fury is on point, but Equinox thwart tosses. There's the expulsion zone boss for Tempo Storm.
Tempo Storm takes the boss, even using isolation just on the clone to make sure that he can't deal the damage needed to get kills for Gale Force eSports. Muradin taken out. Tempo Storm will start their death march toward the core of Gale Force.
Abathur is doing his best there with Zagara up on top to be able to get a keep, but I hate to break it to you, GFE, a keep for a core is not necessarily the best way to trade out.
No, I don't think that ever is a trade that ends favorably.
You are, in fact, correct. It is not
I don't always trust my caster math, but this one I'm pretty sure.
Either way, the boss marching itself in. Tempo Storm not even needing to take down the keep. 16 minutes. What can they do? Can they take the game? 4 versus 5 on the defense. The shield's already taken damage.
It's Cassia here. It is a triple warrior, so it is maybe less damage, but still the core is rapidly falling in health. 40% and down. Michael Udall thrown away from doing damage that might have gained the kills necessary. Tempo Storm wins game 1.
There was a total of 0 team fights in that entire game. And that is a good and a bad thing. A good thing considering the composition of Gale Force and my coffee. Gale Force eSports is good at that. That part makes it a lot of sense, you know, to be able to focus around that and to stick with that global pressure, not try and take the team fights. But it still is surprising that they gave up so many fights, but still not even one time it really felt like in that game. It felt like the global pressure, oh, you know, we see even the game ended before Gale Force even could get a keep.
Yeah, they refused to fight for Tribute Top. That seemed to be one big one that they wouldn't even stall for. And then at the keep, not even being willing to try anything there. Obviously, it was cursed, so it wasn't helping with the defense, but it was maybe a possible position where they could have done something, gotten a kill.
I agree, because when we were talking about that moment where nobody went up to delay the tribute, I actually can totally understand that once in a while. But when it's 6 tributes in a row, there's a problem, especially when you have an Abathur composition, right? You need to make sure that you get some form of delay to make that pick worth your time. And so I think that's it. It's, yes, they did do the passiveness that they needed, but they just went a little too low on the dial.
Well, that will mean Tempo Storm has that game number 1 in the bag. After this